Welcome, everyone, to the Win Now podcast, hosted by Deborah Byrd, founder and CEO of Plug and Play SM.
I am so excited for today's show, so let's go.
And then myself, Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon.
If your strategy was, I'm just going to get people to my website, that strategy is out. Google became the no-click and AI engine and machine. Buyers still choose humans for the referrals, but now they're choosing the expert and hiring the expert much faster because they can verify quicker through multiple sources. Trust became emotional, not informational. In fact, it said that influence is earned through compassion, and the whole goal is to get people to say to themselves, do you get me?
Welcome to season 3 of the Win Now podcast. Deborah and I have missed you all so much. I'm your co-host, Todd Bookspan. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-hostess with the mostest, Deborah Byrd. Welcome, Miss Byrd.
Welcome. And it's already February 2026. I feel like I say this every year, but January just goes by so quick. And then February is a short month. So before you know it, we're already through Q1. So welcome. It's February 2026. We had Groundhog's Day. And I don't even know, Todd, did the little groundhog, did he see his shadow or not?
I missed that. Don't tell my social media coordinator at Plug and Play SM, but I haven't been very good at my social media lately, actually, really ever. And I don't know. I did not go on social media to see if he saw a shadow. And so if anyone knows that, just make a comment so we know what we should be prepared for weather-wise coming up.
Yes. Is that in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
I think it's Pennsylvania, but Philadelphia is in Pennsylvania. One's a city, one's a state. We're good.
But it's not. Was that a bigger deal? Because I know you're from there, which has nothing to do with today's show, but
I don't think it was any bigger of a deal there than it is anywhere else, but that's awesome. And regardless of when you're watching this, we recorded this in the beginning of February, and I agree with you, right? There's so much going on out in the world right now. And you and I took a little hiatus here from the podcast. I'm super excited to have it back because I feel like now more than ever, after really looking back at 2025 in review, I feel like anyone who's a professional in sales, regardless of industry, really needs to be thinking about, here we are, we're 1 month in, right? We're not talking about your New Year's resolutions. We're not talking about your goal for the year because I know you're already off track. It's really rare for me that I find somebody who has the discipline and the consistency to win all the time. And so let's talk about winning now. And so we wanted to walk through our observations from last year. And Deborah always comes super prepared. I had some notes, but I have my 5 points. So we're going to talk about your 5 points, and I'm going to add my color in there. And kind of our goal this year, too, as we go through the podcast, is we are going to really be breaking it down into different segments. We're going to do shorter hits with just the two of us talking. We're going to bring in guests where we're going to talk about sales. We're going to talk about productivity. We're going to talk about AI and social, which, of course, we're going to have Deborah as our guest probably all the time on those, since she's crushing it in those areas. We're probably going to surprise you every once in a while in the longer months with health and wealth. But we're really excited for changing it up a little bit this year. And we're excited that you're here. And we're going to also talk as we go through here about just some of the things that Deborah and I are focused on for this year and other ways to support us and support the show. But let's talk with number 1, because I really love where we're going.
So the first thing that I wrote down is just how Google became the no-click and AI engine and machine, meaning if your strategy was, I'm just going to get people to my website, that strategy is out. What's in is creating easy to understand, readable by humans and AI, short pieces of content that answers real human questions. So again, if your strategy was, what can I do to get the clicks, and measuring clicks on your website, that is only going to continue to go down. And that's largely because of the expansion of the AI overviews. So you need to start thinking about what are the brand assets that I can create as a library instead of just posting more volume.
This reminds me, I had some friends in the real estate world back in the early mid 2000s, and they were all about blogging, and you got to create all these blogs so people can find you. It almost seems like what's old is new again. Is that a good way to put it?
And I'm coming from the lens of just your overall visibility and how do salespeople get found? How do they get trusted? And that's shifted quite a bit in this past year. But to your point, AI is now just another persona that could be another referral source. So we have our sphere of influence, we have our database, we have past clients, but we also had social media. and we had SEO. Now we have AI. And a lot of people will say, oh, SEO is out and it's now answer engine optimization or AEO or GEO. And really, you have to have all of it. People have been calling it search everywhere optimization. And the whole reason behind the blogs is because it makes it easy for machines or AI to extract the information and verify you when humans or platforms, because we are seeing a future where, people are going to have their AI automations and voice agents doing research for them and saying, here's who you need to contact. So it can't just be relying on what humans say, because humans now trust but verify, and so does AI. And so there's a lot to creating that bank of library that is your frequently asked questions, but doing it in a way that can be crawled and understood by both the human and the AI agents, which is really just like chunking things down, best practices that we would know just from a visual standpoint. But there's also the technical aspect behind those blog sites. So yes, blogging is back, but it's done not with keyword stuffing.
Ooh, all right. So that's a good teaser for the fact that we're going to actually once a month have a whole show just dedicated to this. And what I love is y'all know that Deborah is the CEO, founder of Plug and Play SM, all things social media for loan officers. But maybe I don't want to overstate this and say something out loud I'm not supposed to say. So maybe you'll have to cut this out of the thing. But you've really made this pivot to where you're also adding in this AI, this SEO, GEO, search everywhere optimization. And that's not just loan officer specific. I know that we were just in Texas. I taught exactly what to say to a group of 200 realtors in the room. And then you taught them about this whole idea of how to do this stuff. So we're going to talk more about this. Is there anything else you want to add on it before we go to number 2?
No, just that it's from the mindset of how do we bring visibility to your credibility? And I would say it does need to start with having credibility. The day of just faking it was no longer, which was a little bit easier to do with social, to be perfectly honest, because perception's reality. So before you even think about marketing, guys, we've got to make sure that we're doing the basics and a lot of things that Win by Noon teaches you. For those of you who have your planner and you follow the themes and in the week, you got to start there and be great at what you do and focus on the advice you give. Otherwise, it just adds noise.
Yeah, we don't want more noise. I think in the end, that's, I think, the biggest challenge that we have. And I can't wait, because I don't know which number it is, but I can't wait for one of the statistics you're going to bring up in a bit.
Okay, so number 1 was that Google became no-click and AI answer was now the new machine. Number 2 was AI overview expanded, which I've already touched on with number 1. So I think just knowing that people ask search-like questions as a conversation now. It's not just the days of using hashtags and just short little phrases. People are even speaking to search, and they're asking, the average prompt is 60 words. So it's a lot longer than what it used to be. So I'll go to number 3, which is buyers still choose humans, but faster. So social is not just for new referrals. It's now to protect referrals, which I personally believe when you do it organically, that's what we were doing the entire time. It wasn't meant for so much as lead gen. It is, especially mortgage and real estate, we are seeing that more and more. Like the number has come down slightly, but it's still human referral based, but it's absolutely this omni channel of people verifying. So they're asking ChatGPT, they're asking Gemini, they're going to social, and most importantly, they're going to your Google reviews. So that is number 3, is that buyers still choose humans for the referrals, but now they're choosing the expert and hiring the expert much faster because they can verify quicker through multiple sources.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, right? That there's just so much there. I do find that I am, against my kids who don't want me to hurt the environment and then weaken my brain, I am using AI every once in a while to help me with the things that I'm trying to research. And I'm always interested to see, what do I get if I do a Google search versus if I go to Gemini versus if I go to Chat, and see that. And then I'm also going to reviews and Yelp and these other places to see it. So I think it still is fascinating. We just put a new fence at our house. And so we reached out through Yelp, and we got a bunch of quotes, Googled, got some quotes that way, and then ended up going with a recommendation from a friend, right? That human referral. But ultimately, I'm a researcher, so I wanted to do my researcher first. And so in the end, we found someone who we could verify based on fact of someone else that we worked with or had worked with them. But I think it's such an interesting changing environment, the amount of time that someone will spend upfront in that research before they actually pick up the phone and talk to a human.
Well, I think it's important to know too that it's no longer just the funnel. It's more like a loop, a never-ending loop, like almost like an infinity symbol, because you're constantly being revalidated. And a lot of mortgage professionals have mentioned they have felt this when maybe they finally get someone to apply and you've issued the pre-approval. And so their whole focus at that time is just what number can I qualify for? Then once they find the home and maybe it was a little bit higher than what they were expecting, like they pushed the DTI, now they're more aware of like payment and rate. And so you sometimes have to sell yourself again. And in fact, that's where a lot of people end up losing a deal is at the time of execute a contract, because that's when someone's going out and shopping all over again. So and then again, after closing, it's like, how do you then own the mind share of the people who have shown they trust you, which they show that by doing business with you? Do you just set it and forget? Or do you have a system to nurture and continuously own that mind share to earn referrals even after the closing, or be at least remembered after the closing?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I know that if we rewind even further back than we're trying to rewind, you had the NAR settlement for real estate agents, and everyone thought that was the end of commissions. And I talked to a lot of agents who are making higher commissions now because they have a new process. They take the time to educate their buyers on that I'm going to have you sign this agreement up front that essentially locks in their commission and how they get paid. And so they've eliminated that up front where in the lending world and in other businesses that comes later in the process. So to me, it's just been a really fascinating piece that once the consumer has clarity on you, how you get paid, what the value you provide is, and then they sign on the dotted line, how you have this opportunity where I'm sure there's ways to get out of it. I'm sure some of them have a clause that says you can cancel this at any time or whatever they tell the person who's hesitant to sign. But the bottom line is they've committed with a signature and off they go.
It's funny you mentioned that because that was such a talked about update. It was a big deal. And there was a lot of like unknowns. And is this going to completely change the way that real estate agents are hired and how they're paid? And I feel like we're at the same point with AI. There's all these unknowns. People are wondering, is my job safe? Will it be replaced? What's the future of America going to be with all these bots? Will we be co-residing with robots? So you just don't know. And I was never one that really worried a lot, but I think to your point, like you look back and it's wow, for some who like really fixated, maybe even exited the business, it didn't even come true. It ended up not being that big a deal. So are we ready for the next one?
Let's do it. Let's do number 4.
So this one came from the Edelman Trust Survey from last year, and it said that trust became emotional, not informational. In fact, it said that influence is earned through compassion, and the whole goal is to get people to say to themselves, like, do you get me? It's that whole show me that you know me button. And it's not, they ask that over, can you quote me? So before they're ever going to go to can you quote me, you've got to show that you understand their unique story, their situation. It's slowing the process down and getting in the mess with them because they're not looking for the expert. They're looking for the guide.
I think that's the power of exactly what to say, right? Phil M. Jones' book, that's the #1 listened to nonfiction audible in the world. You and I are both exactly what they say, certified guides. You and I probably, again, can't fact check this one, but I believe we've probably certified more people in exactly what to say over the last few years than anyone other than Phil himself. We've got a bunch of other great guides who go out and teach. I don't know that they focus on the certification as much as you and I have. And so I think it's always that thing of being curious and how do we get to that point of the show me that you know me button. I know we're going to talk a lot about communication when we're talking about sales here. If you're interested in learning more about what Deborah and I teach, we have an ongoing, regardless of when you're listening to this, whether it's 2028 and you're listening to a replay of this old show that we did back in 2026, if you just go to EWTS for exactly what to say with Todd and Deb.com. Deb put me first. I'm a chauvinist. I would have put Deb first, but it's EWTS with Todd and Deb.com. And we always have either what's coming up or how to get on a info list to be notified of our next event, whether it's a half-day virtual event, a 2-day live certification. We're even doing some 3 half-day virtual certifications. But I do think, going back to your point, that what's emotional, not informational, you have to be able to get to that point where you've added together that whole idea of being curious and showing your empathy, showing that you relate. You said the show me that me button, building that trust.
Yeah, in a lot of the research that I did, I can't express enough the importance of the quality of our communication skills. Not only in your ability to explain your value, but how easy are you to comprehend? Do you make it clear, concise? Is it repeatable? The days of peacocking and almost creating professional confusion, anyone who's still confused means they're not making a decision.
Let me
And so
talk to the loan officers. Let me talk to the loan officers
okay.
and listen to this. A lot of loan officers, when we get in the business, we learn a lot about how interest rates work from Barry Habib, right? Barry's done a great job of teaching candlestick charts and how you can do stuff. And I was super intrigued. I still love it. I love Barry. I think he provides great value out there in the market on what's going on with interest rates. And my wife, who's way smarter than me, came to work with me, and our desks were right across from each other. So just like Deborah and I are looking at each other on Zoom, my wife was looking at me. I was looking at her while we were working together. And she was like blown away with how technical I get clients about where interest rates are going. I was like, we're at this floor in the ceiling, we're minus 7 basis points. And if this happens, we break through the 50-day moving average. And she was like this with her doing that hand thing across her neck. Stop it. Just stop it. But so you loan officers who are going down that deep rabbit hole, yeah, it does maybe impress some people, but most people are like the teacher in Charlie Brown, for those of you who are old enough to remember, like they turn that off. You have to come up with a more concise way of expressing your knowledge about interest rates and where rates are going in a way that makes sense. That's the way that I would sum that up.
In a way where they could easily repeat it like to a spouse. Because if they just have the call with you, and if they can't explain in an easy way based off their own comprehension to the other person they could be sharing a home with, then you've also lost in that translation and perhaps the bigger decision maker between the two. So just think clear, concise, and consistent.
I love
Okay,
that.
the last
Three Cs,
one.
clear, concise,
Yeah.
and consistent. I'm writing that down. All right, you go on the last one.
The last one is we are overwhelmed by communication. And it's no longer we don't lack information. We have information at our fingertips. And so there was a Microsoft study, and they said that workers get app alerts every 1.75 minutes, which is about 275 interruptions per day. So we are in a constant state of distraction. And I believe I had read that it takes 11 minutes to overcome any distraction. So if you do the math, like we're always distracted and not doing good work, focused work. Which also means if you have too much information, this is where from a marketing standpoint, how do you then become memorable? Because you could be scrolling and in fact, the average person, when they scroll, it's the same distance from the very top of the Statue of Liberty all the way to the ground. That's how many feet the average person scrolls. So how you can
Mind blown.
You could be in the middle of that. And if it's not wow, if it's just vanilla and you're just regurgitating, this is what I mean by the more noise. No, like people are switching platforms, 7 different platforms in any given month because of all the inundation of messages where we almost have an oversupply.
So this is my favorite one because, again, to me, it comes back to productivity. When I first started teaching Win by Noon, how to be more productive by noon every day, back in 2017, I had a slide that said we need human blinders. So I had a first slide that showed a horse in the Kentucky Derby with those blinders that are on the side of their eyes because horses can look backwards and all around. And then I had this guy sitting in his chair, this cartoon, and it's a guy with human blinders on. And it really is an epidemic of being disrupted. And me, I've got everything turned off on my phone. And I do have a couple things that have that little circle with a number on it. It's typically when I'm trying to get used to a new app or new device. Like I've got for Win by Noon, I've got a text community, and then someone will text me and I don't check it every day, just like I don't check my social media. Sorry, Deb. And then I'm like, oh shoot, I missed this message. So I turned that on this year so that I'll get messages from people. But it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't ding. And I have my phone, I created it in my iPhone. I'm not sure about how you would do this in an Android, but you can create these different focus modes. So mine says Winning by Noon. So every day in the morning, when I wake up, it's already on Winning by Noon. And guess what? Until noon, my phone's on Do Not Disturb. The only people who can get through is someone in my favorites, which is family and a couple business partners. Deb, you're on that list. You could call me before noon ring. But ultimately, I've got all the other things off, right? And I'm always amazed when I'm sitting at dinner or sitting in a meeting with other professionals and I see that they've got a Facebook notification or ESPN's telling them what coach was hired in the NFL or what's going on in the stock market. I'm like, those are all just distractions. And your 11 minutes, that's on the low end of all the different studies. I've heard 15 minutes, I've heard 22 minutes because it's not, the challenge is it's your brain truly doesn't get back into what Cal Newport would call the deep work when you get distracted. And so how do you then get to that point where you don't allow those other things to get in here? I call it Club 44. This is my 44-foot studio up here. And right now it's still barren. I will get some artwork on the wall eventually, but right now it's pretty much just empty up here, because if not, I get so easily distracted, and it's the only way I can get into work. I'm listening to a coach in the real estate space. His name is Tony Caliendo. We're going to be interviewing him on the Mortgage Coach Friday Mastermind. And he is coming out with a book in the fall. I think it's called Less is More. Sorry, Tony, if I got that wrong. But he said something that was really a different view on the reticular activator. He was talking about why it's so important to have clarity. And what he said was that his quote was like you have a billion things all around you that you can see. I can see my light behind me. I can't see the tissue box. I can see my teacup. I can see my water bottle, all these things that you see, but you can only process 128 per second, but like a billion things per second. But he said, when you have clarity on what you're focusing on, what the goal is, now I'm not talking like your year-end goal, but I'm like literally for the next half hour, the next 15 minutes, are you clear on that? Then your reticular activator helps you find that. So right now I'm focused on Deb and I'm focused on this conversation. So I'm not seeing these other things. My reticular activator is not getting up, but really that's the biggest thing, is if you allow those things in, then you're allowing yourself to not hit your true potential. And so I'm super excited as we dig in. We'll definitely do an episode on that when it comes to productivity, for sure.
It's funny you say that about the social media aspect, because I really do feel like the mega superstars that we get to work with, one of the top reasons they hire us is because they don't even want the social media apps on their phone. They understand it's important and it's valuable. They just don't want to be the one doing it, because they know themselves, and they are designed to feed the addiction and to make you distracted and to want to stay on the platform longer. So it's been very revealing to see those who still try to do it themselves and not even realize the true cost of that, whether it's you go to post and not even maybe posting at the right time or in the most strategic way, but then seeing the notifications and going down the rabbit hole of avoiding the good work or the focused work that maybe you should be doing from a business development and trust building side, and letting a team handle your visibility machine.
Yeah. In full disclosure, my goal is to get on there once a day for less than 5 minutes, so I can see if there's any conversations that I need to be part of, based on the fact that your team is posting great content for me, and then my videos are up there. And I never want to miss an opportunity to support somebody who needs some support, or to reply to someone who sent me a direct message. But it's certainly not the best way for me to communicate, but I do know other people. I got a business opportunity yesterday that someone reached out to me through social, and that was great. Like, I loved that, but I could have missed it if I didn't do my daily check. And then I'm just as guilty. The reason I say that is because I did look. I think I was on for 3 hours last week. So whatever, that's more than 5 minutes a day. But that just tells you I had my blood drawn. I was sitting there, even though I had an appointment, still took 20, 30 minutes. And we know what I do. I scrolled the Statue of Liberty while I was sitting there. Normally I go to those types of things where I've got work to do. I feel weird being on the phone in a quiet waiting room with 20 other people who are annoyed that they didn't make an appointment and they're waiting. So it's just this whole idea of how do you then again put on those human blinders, and when is it okay? I don't have a problem. If it's Saturday afternoon and you're sitting there, I think it's a great time to scroll social. It was always odd to me when I would walk by, and we had a big mortgage office, and I would see somebody who during the business day, who had business work to do, was on Facebook or on social. And I think it's only worse now.
Imagine if your goal is to have 10 quality conversations a day, and instead of just doom scrolling while you're waiting at a doctor's office, you just sent 5 quality messages or made 2 quality phone calls if it's possible. And it's like, that's the opportunity we get robbed of by getting sucked into.
And look at you coaching me up always, Deb. What I should have done, shoulda, coulda, woulda.
But I will say, I do agree with you. Like, you should be using it to create conversations and to keep those conversations going. And I also think there is a way you can train the algorithm that you can consume and micro learn, because depending on which platform I'm on and maybe which personality I am at that time, it's very clear of the system will feed you what you want to learn more about. And that's probably where I get a lot of my best learning, is because it's quick and to the point, and I just find people that I'll subscribe to. So then I get notifications every time there's a new post. And then I just do my study time, usually at night in the bathtub.
But that's a perfect idea. That's the AI version of your reticular activator, right? Because it knows it goes back and proves my point that it's what you focus on. And my wife did tell me when we were walking this morning that she did get good content from this one website where different people write in about stuff. So
Oh, nice.
that's good because we make fun of our kids who get weird, random stuff and TikTok.
I do still get some dancing cat videos from AI that I think are hilarious, and I send them to my kids. So that's probably I keep getting more of them, is because anything you save or share, that is like gold to the machine.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right. So I feel like I loved it when Deborah came prepared. I had my list of things, but I thought Deborah's was better than mine, of course, and that we could really roll through these. What else do you want to make sure that we wrap up with on episode 1, season 3, as we look back on next year and we get excited for this year? What else do we want to share with people? Where else do we want to send them? What else do we want to let them know?
You're putting me on the spot. Really, to me, every episode is about how can we win now? And win now means it could be in your personal life, your professional life, your communication. It could just be for the day. So just redefining what a win is, maybe that would be the homework assignment, is what does a win look like in each area of your life? Have you defined it? Do you know what it is? And it then echoes what you were saying about what you focus on expands. But if we don't even know what we want, or if we only measure wins by like units closed or volume, that can be very misleading in both a positive way and a negative way. Like during COVID, it was circumstance that made us feel super successful for some. But so it's just to protect the internal capacity in you feeling successful. It's like we've got to redefine what a win is and then start winning bigger and winning now.
I love it. I love the way that you put a bow on that. Yeah, what I would say is that's why I really was blown away by that idea of really being clear on what's next. And of course, I always start off with the big goal, like where am I trying to go? And I thought, actually, that's not really it. The reason that I really block my calendar like I do, and it's got a lot of white space in there. I don't just live this to this. I've got a lot of time in there to be able to react to what's going on in my world, whether it's personally or professionally. However, I feel like that's where a lot of people miss it. And so I do love that you tied it up that way. For me, it's the win now. It's what do I need to do to win this next, whatever that time frame is that I've got laid out for that next thing. And then how can I do that without the distraction every 105 seconds from an app notification? I'll tell one last story because it was funny. I saw this article this morning on CNN and I sent it over to my business partner, Matt Baker, and I sent it to him via text. And he's like, that's pretty funny. I sent this to you already via email. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I don't check my email. I haven't checked my email yet today. And here we are. Shouldn't say it. It's 10:30 my time. And I haven't checked my email because that's not an important version of communication to me. I always think that there's a ladder of urgency, and snail mail's the slowest and email's the next, right? So that's not that important to me. And so therefore I'm just not looking at that. So how do you turn off distractions? To me, it's being okay with the fact that I have probably 50 emails, although I have an executive assistant, so maybe I've only got 2 that were important that she put aside for me. But ultimately, in the end, it's this whole idea of if you're crystal clear on what's important, you can push out those other things, but we need to set up those guardrails. So we'll talk about that. I love that we came up with the title Win Now, because I think we can win in so many areas, like you said, personally and professionally. I'm excited for the fact that you came up with the idea, brilliant, of having these different weeks. We also have a show. We didn't really mention the other show that we have. It's a show that we just wanted to do once a year, and we've just never done it, but we're probably going to do it once a month. We don't know what we're going to call it yet, but it's taking on 2 of the podcasters I like. Tim Ferriss does what he calls the random show, and Rich Roll does the roll-on show, where they just talk about just random stuff. What it could be something that they bought that they love. It could be a movie that they watched, a show that they watched, something new piece of technology that they're using. For those of you who truly just want to get into our odd minds, guess what? We're going to let you in.
To me, it reminds me of the Kelsey brothers.
Yeah, there you go. There you
Yeah.
go. They have a lot of sponsors. If we could get $100 million
Yeah.
deal and some sponsors, that'd be great. So if any of you are thinking you've got a coffee company or a tea company or a supplement company that is legit, Deborah and I are open.
We sure are.
All right, Deborah, we did it. We are here. We're committed. We're excited for 2026 with all of you. We're super grateful you're here. I would be remiss if I didn't ask if you could give this a like wherever if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this or listening to it on any of the podcast places. If you could subscribe, that would really help us as well. And then ultimately, if you can share it. I know you've got a coworker or a friend who needs to win now, who's been struggling, and that you found one little thing in here one little story that Deborah and I told that you think's a nugget that would help them. And we'd love it if you could share with them and just tell them to fast forward to that part and listen to it. And maybe they'll become a fan too.
Yes. And don't forget to leave a review as well. And then as always, win now.
All right. That's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.